Minchi or Namo Akabason, Costa Maya, Ben Media GH. So, Abusia Maya, West, anytime in the debate platform is to be out. Now, political issues are a traveling the best to my platform is. John Dramani Mahama to me a winning a 2024 election. No winning 2024 election. I idea the president of Burkina Faso a TRaore ebe congratulate him. But I see you know, and someone answer questions are a trouble in and say a idea. They say no TRaore a Burkina Faso president no why training home free ECOWAS ne other associations are a World Africa have a hand. They say for a business they say John Dramani Abamo on ECOWAS be ye adwuma against a Burkina Faso president na because the last time I checked na idea Burkina Faso abra omo eje omo ho edi free France for ho no idea omo kofa Russia for soldiers abra omo dem omo ho ekobo Putin no Russia for soldiers eba Burkina so be guide Burkina eba to the extent omo be da Burkina ne Ghana ye borderline so some way ema papa nanado danko akofo se beka ya oko USA committee US secretary e de some no de to mo nim say ya dia Russian troops aba ye Ghana ye border so na saade no is a threat to us abuson some way ema kofo bebe na ba bonten e de omo nsem anaso omo ano e de tumo e ka kire ye papa nanado danko akofo say ya dia Russia for abampo no omo aba borderline no supo ya dia beboa aboye mpo ye ho ban na akofo ado ne nioma bi a oye na mabi mu e ka so ekokonsa ni saa enema na mabusu asisi e ho sama ba betodwa enam ye papa John Dramani Mahama wa wini abansese questions are eba no say John Dramani Mahama ebe ni ECOWAS and other associations that ye adwuma akense ye Burkina na member say me kasa ba wa ne die kwanse ha ye be media GH so say ende dika wa ne twa channel so abusu ebe so bomodian subscribe like na share ma hofo pensem bi etie enya bi ente menche no yenko ne nkoti esam no mu enchire mu emrasisi a yedase.
Africa does not need your sympathy.
Ibrahim Traore wrote this message to John Dramani Mahama because
attacks in Mali, Burkina Faso and
Ghana / Sahel or Burkina Faso. The election of Ghana is officially declared. John Dramani Mahama is the president of Ghana. Just after he was declared as the president of Ghana, the president of Burkina Faso, the military leader of Burkina Faso, the justice man, Ibrahim Traore, congratulated him with a message. I'm going to read that message to you. Now, there's one question around. The president-elect John Dramani Mahama, is he going to come into office and work with France and the coup through ECOWAS against the Sahel? Where does he stand in that regard? We are going to find out. One thing I can guarantee quickly in that regard is that he opposed that idea, because so far as the Akufo-Addo government is concerned, there is constant threat of ECOWAS invasion into the Sahel. Akufo-Addo opposed everything that is happening in the Sahel, especially Burkina Faso, because last time we all know, not to waste time, he went to the United States and was complaining bitterly against Burkina Faso to the Secretary of the United States, begging them and asking them that they are not happy, or he is not happy with the forces that Burkina Faso is working with, which is the Russian forces, in terms of security. So how can he help the United States to fight back those forces? He said it plain. I don't want to play that video for us to have a long video. No. Here you know how we do it. We are done. So he is in opposition to what is happening in the Sahel. But after coming back home, the president-elect right now, John Dramani Mahama, criticized him and said if he come to office, he's coming to work hand in hand with Burkina Faso. He said it. I know many people watched that video. For me not to waste your data in playing that video, he said it. There is another thing also. Is he a puppet or someone who doesn't care about the unity of Africa, the borderless Africa, and the things we have been preaching about Africa? Where does he stand there? I'm going to take you back to one of his amazing unscripted speech at the General 71 session of the United Nations. A powerful speech that we were not paying attention to, or we did not pay attention to. That speech will tell us where exactly he stands and what he's coming to do in regards to the Pan-African movement. In that video, Mahama reminding them of slavery and colonialism, reminding them that the war around was fueled by them. He reminded them of not listening to Michael Jackson. He reminded them of Berlin Conference. He told them about how they cripple our agriculture potential, our farming potential, how they are the reason why Africans are migrating to Europe. He told them to the face that Africa does not need their sympathy. And he also told them that they cannot enforce their democracy on us. He spoke and made shocking remarks about the terrorism in the Sahel, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, including Chad. He was very sarcastic and you must pay attention to get it right. So ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to that speech. Powerful one. Then after that, we read the message of Burkina Faso. Then you will understand why Burkina Faso leader congratulated him with that message. Because when you read the message of Burkina Faso leader, Ibrahim Traore, you will not actually understand why he was putting that message across. But after listening to this video, then you will understand why Ibrahim Traore gave this message that I'm going to read to you.
I am the President of the Republic of Ghana. I was born 1 year after my country gained independence from colonial domination in 1957. I was born in the same year as Michael Jackson, whose untimely tragic death shocked the whole world. Michael was also known as the King of Pop and was one of the greatest entertainers that ever lived. The words of his 1991 hit song, Heal the World, continues to echo to us from his grave. Michael Jackson sang, and I quote, "Heal the world, make the world a better place for you and for me and the entire human race." His song was released in 1991 and came at a time of excitement for the whole world. In the 58 years of my life, I have seen the world change more rapidly than in the millions of years of its existence. My life has spanned the excitement of the post-war era, the heady days of our liberation from colonial rule in Africa, the Apollo moon landing, the Cold War, the excitement at the fall of the Berlin Wall, the era of globalization, the end of apartheid, the global progress of the MDGs, the Arab Spring, Brexit, China's slowdown, SDGs, ISIS, cyber attacks, and it goes on and on and on and on. Mr. President, our world today is more complicated than it has ever been. And the question I ask is, what happened to the ideals that gave birth to this organization, the United Nations? What happened to that enthusiasm that captured the spirit of the post-war world, that envisioned peace, safety, and security for all of mankind? What happened to the excitement at the thawing of the Cold War? And what happened to our joy at the collapse of apartheid? The era of the Cold War created a paradoxical safety and security. The bipolar world and the arms race assured mutual destruction from any nuclear war. And therefore the world was a more predictable place. Those of us in developing countries hid behind our shield of the non-aligned movement. We marched against nuclear armaments and envisioned the day the nuclear arms race would end, so that the trillions of dollars that were being spent by the superpowers on nuclear weapons will yield a dividend that will create a life of prosperity for all people on earth. President Reagan stood before the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin in 1987 and said, "Mr. Gorbachev," I quote, "Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Quotations closed. In President Reagan's words, walls cannot withstand faith, walls cannot withstand truth, and walls cannot withstand freedom. The fall of the Berlin Wall envisioned a new world, the era of globalization, an age where trade and interaction amongst people of the world would spread prosperity across the globe. A young man in West Africa drops out of school and takes to selling petty items along the streets of the city. Agreeing with 4 of his friends, they decide to raise money and try to make it to the greener pastures of Europe. They pay their way through Niger and arrive at Agadez, from where they brave the trek of death. This is a dangerous hike across the harshest desert on earth, the Sahara. They are attacked by bandits along the way and robbed of all their money and provisions. They are rescued by some good Samaritan. 2 members of their group do not make it through the desert crossing. After months of living under the threats of death from many of the armed groups, including ISIS in Libya, they finally board an overloaded dinghy bound for Italy. Rescued from the sea after their dinghy capsized, only one of them remained, held in a refugee center in Italy. And this could be the story of any young African seeking a better life in Europe. Mr. President, all over the world, there are new walls coming up. Walls that imprison us against the rest of the world. The young African refugee in an Italian detention center is facing one such new wall now. In many parts of the world, extremist forces have hijacked the dialogue And in the millennial generation, all available cutting-edge technology is being used to spread anxieties that evoke fear and arouse our basest emotions. Hate speech is becoming common. People complain of being tired of being politically correct. In many places, xenophobia has taken over rational thinking. It is a paradox of our world that nearly 30 years after President Reagan called for the Berlin Wall to be torn down, new walls are springing up everywhere. And yet we have the resources in this world to guarantee each person a decent life. In Valletta, the European Union put 1.8 billion euros into an emergency fund to cooperate with Africa in curbing unregulated migration. And yet, with a significant share of the world's arable lands, a youthful labor force, a significant share of the world's natural resources, a reordering of economic relations could create boundless opportunities that will keep young Africans at home and not risk their lives across these perilous journeys. Removing subsidies to farmers of the advanced world will create an even playing field for African farmers to compete. Removing revenue and non-revenue barriers to African produce would give African agriculture a fighting chance.